Okay.
What a weird couple weeks, man.
Yeah.
I'm just completely out of my mind.
It's like a parallel universe. It's like the school year was a dream for me, like a distant memory for a couple of months, and it just comes rushing back all at once, and it's like you're back in it. The kids are up at 6. I'm up at 4:30.
Yeah, all those little chores and things that you just didn't do in the summer are back with a vengeance.
Right.
Know? All of a sudden, I have to have milk in the house. I have, so the children can eat in the morning.
They like milk. That's good. So
they're just basically veals, little baby veals.
No milk in the summer, though. Is it too hot?
Well, but it's not an emergency. Like they don't need a bowl of Cheerios at 8 a.m. in the summertime.
They're going to sleep till 11,
right?
And they did get comfortable going to bed late, and
and as they get older, they sleep later.
And they probably got to school and said something like this to their teacher. And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads in their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
Yeah, I'm Mike R.
And boy, do we have a show for you today on RMA. It's fall again on the Gold Coast of Long Island, and Mike and Nat have reconvened deep below the Earth's surface, nestled comfortably behind the microphones at Castle Grayskull Studios. Today, we review the Netflix documentary, Recovery Boys. All this and more today on a very, very special edition of RMA. Hey. And welcome. Would you like that segue?
That was amazing.
Because the kids are back.
It was
we're back.
Your brain's firing on all cylinders.
Boom.
That's because I gave you coffee.
That's right. Kaboom.
I don't know. I've been having a really hard time re-engaging in this lately.
In the
podcast life.
Yeah.
Like it's tough because I don't even think about it when I'm not doing it. You know.
Me neither. I used to be so good. Like every single day, I'd think of something and I'd have another idea and put it on a bullet point, and I'm like, I got to get my mind back into this because this is where the important work happens.
That's right. This is our recovery.
This is it,
and we've been neglecting our recovery. Will that cause a downfall, do you think? Do you think we're one missed podcast episode away from
a relapse? God, I hope not. God, I hope not.
Why don't scientists trust atoms?
Why?
Because they make up everything.
Didn't.
See, I think that was so fucked.
They do, though. It's.
Why was the math book sad?
Why?
Because it had too many problems.
Ugh. We're losing listeners by the handful.
Dear ChatGPT, write me a list of bad dad jokes, and this is what I get.
Nice.
What do you call fake spaghetti?
What?
An impasta.
ChatGPT.
Why do cows have hooves instead of feet?
Why?
Because they lactose.
Lactose. And I'm lactose intolerant.
So interesting and weird time in the life around here.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we used to have a flow to the show. We used to do things in an order.
Yes.
So how about this?
Yeah.
You want to do the review or you want to do the voicemails?
Both.
First? Okay. Well,
at the same time, it'll be extremely confusing to everyone.
How about you want to do the voicemail?
Yeah. Let's hear the voice. We've got voicemails.
You've got
mail.
Voicemail. Here's a voicemail.
Okay. Maybe it's a voice female. We shall see.
I think it's a male.
Oh, okay.
But one can never assume these days.
It's a voice they.
Yes.
Mike, Nat, what's up, fellas?
Hi.
My name's Kevin from North Carolina. I have 7 months clean from heroin, 2 weeks sober from alcohol. And it was easier for me to quit heroin over alcohol because alcohol, you can't just block the number in your phone or not drive through the alcohol side of town. But man, the episode y'all did with Annie Grace's This Naked Mind was awesome, and that led me down a rabbit hole. of a bunch of audio books. There's a couple that helped me. The Alcohol Illusion by Craig Beck, Alcohol Lied to Me, Craig Beck, and then Alcohol Explained 1 and 2 by William Porter. They're great, man. I'd love to hear y'all do an episode on these if you haven't already, but they just break down the psychology of alcohol addiction, because I need help with my spirituality, but they take the approach, you're not really powerless over alcohol, but it's the fact it's literally poison, it's fucking disgusting, tastes like shit, and they just try to turn you off to it, like breaking up with a dirty hoe of a ex-girlfriend that cheated on you a dozen times. But man, I have a bad habit of only listening to y'all when I'm trying to do good because I want to be so good so bad. But I felt like if I listened to y'all more often in the dark times, I'd be in better shape because when I do listen to y'all, I do good. So you hear that, y'all? Listen to RMA more often. It's for your own fucking good, man.
Damn.
Peace out, guys. Love y'all.
Thanks, Kevin.
Nice, and I like he threw in the Dopey song.
Yes,
lyric.
yes.
I like the way he casually just sort of want to be good so bad.
Seeded the Dopey in there. I was thinking about the first step the other day. Isn't that odd that I did that? Because I never think of the steps at all. But I was listening to this Buddhist guy his name's Dave Smith, and he's agreed to come on the podcast, actually.
Oh, really?
I listened to a couple of his podcasts, and I was like, I fucking love this guy. And he's in like Buddhist recovery, but not the Dharma recovery and all that stuff. He's like got his own thing going on. And
carving his own path.
But what he said, and this is a bit of a tangent, but he said, a lot of these other Dharma recovery things, it's like they take Buddhism and then they sort of graft AA on top of it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my major criticism of Dharma recovery. It's like, you don't really need, the 12 steps are out there. You don't really need to take 12 steps and then graft them onto Buddhism, right? He's like, everything you need.
You can't just swap out the word God for Buddha.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they're a little more sophisticated than that, but the Buddha Dharma, the teachings have everything you need in them to work as a recovery program. You don't need to sort of gild the lily, as it were. Anyway, so he was talking about the first step in a talk that he did, and he said something like, something that all of a sudden made me realize that the way to accept the first step as a Buddhist is to replace the word, what is it? What's the first step?
Something
powerlessness, right?
Powerless over alcohol, and that our lives have become unmanageable.
You take the powerlessness and you replace it with like control, because I can really identify with this idea that I want to try and control everything and that I can control the world around me. And that's what causes me a lot of suffering, is this idea that I can make things bend to my will and do things that I want to do. But really the issue with alcohol was a lack of control. And I was trying so hard to control, but I was not able to control. So if you replace, and I maybe it's just a semantic difference, but it was like this little light went on in my head. I'm like, it's all about relinquishing control.
Well, that's what they talk about, that giving up your will. I mean, will and control.
Are they the same thing, though?
Oh.
See, I don't know.
Probably.
Because,
depends on how you spin it.
Willpower is just like, okay, I'm going to grit my teeth and I'm not going to do this thing. And your willpower can be exhausted, right? Because, I mean, studies have shown that you could only exert your will to do or not do something for a certain period of time before you become mentally fatigued and it doesn't work anymore.
Right. If you're just holding on with your will.
But if you phrase it as sort of letting go of the idea that you need to control something, is that exerting willpower, or is that the opposite? Is
to me, that
sort of
sounds
letting
like
go?
That sounds like acceptance.
Okay.
Right? Like you're accepting the things I cannot change. Everybody out there, say it along with me. Change the things we can. And what's the next part?
Yes,
have the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, that sounds like acceptance. Accepting that there are things completely out of your control, and to obsess over attempting to control them is futile. Yeah. And
resistance is futile, right?
Join the Borg.
Yes. I don't know.
We're hiring.
So we also got another one from.
Wait, I wanted to say one thing.
Yeah, go.
Oh, he had a really good. He brought up a great point though about. He said it was harder for him to quit alcohol than heroin.
Yeah.
I had the exact same. Problem. I was able to kick heroin in about 2013 through Suboxone and treatment and doctors, and I was good for a while. And then what I found was my relapse and what led to my eventual downfall again was alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I would literally be able to pick it up on my way to work. I wasn't calling some shady dude. I was seeing some shady dude at a 7-Eleven. And it's a lot more difficult to say no to alcohol than, once you separate yourself from the world of, drug dealers and things. Alcohol is the easy get.
It is an easy get, and which, and it's unfortunate that it is so easy because, again, not to go be all wonky on studies, but a lot of studies have shown that access is one of the keys to successfully recovering. Like geographic cure, in the AA world is typically doesn't work, right? Because wherever you go, there you are. You bring yourself with you. But if you take yourself away, it can work to some degree, because if I move from the Bronx, where I can find it really really easily on every street corner, to Alaska in a cabin in the woods where there's no crack, I'm not going to do crack.
There's a good chance
right?
you won't find crack.
So it'll set me up for to get to the beginning of the path, sort of a trailhead, if you will.
Gets your head clear, gets you away from it.
Which is the whole idea behind rehab, I suppose.
And
right?
recovery boys.
Yeah, you take yourself away from the people, places, and things, and you put yourself, at the trailhead of the trail to recovery, of the journey to recovery, right? So I got another one.
Okay.
From Russell. Remember Russell? We played his message last time.
Russell shows muscle, and that was a Yankees home run call. I had to say it. Sorry.
It's Russell.
Russell shows muscle. That ball is high.
Oh, well, this is Jermaine for this upcoming weekend. So
this is Jermaine, or it's
Russell?
Oh, not Jermaine.
It's Russell's friend, Jermaine.
Okay, great.
Right.
Hey, Mike and Nat. It's Russell H., a.k.a. Ruffagus from shitty Pittsburgh. Hey, if any of the Munsters are going to be in Pittsburgh this weekend, I don't know why anybody would come to Pittsburgh for vacation. But on September 16th, there's a recovery walk. It starts at 9 a.m. And I hate to say the guy's name like this, but Mark Cuban's brother is going to be one of the speakers there. Supposed to be like a day full of fun. So anybody's going to be in Pittsburgh, there you go. Thanks, guys. Hope you're well.
So if anybody out there is within driving distance of Pittsburgh and wants to hang out with Mark Cuban's brother, whose name I forget, whose book we reviewed on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did that guy's book.
He was the lawyer.
Yes.
The 16th is this upcoming weekend, so go to Schittsburg.
Cool.
Have a good time.
Thanks, Russell.
It's weird. Pittsburgh is the only city that I went to during the pandemic for work.
Interesting. They were open for business, or?
I wouldn't say open for business. I stayed downtown, and there was a lot of like tumbleweeds blowing through the city. There was a lot of homeless folks wandering around. Everything was closed. The hotel was closed. It was a very weird scene. But I got a couple good runs in. They have a nice path along the river there. And, back in pandemic days, people would see you and they would run the other direction, which I always loved. I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Pittsburgh. So.
Go Steelers.
Okay.
Or don't. I don't know. What are the Steelers? That's a football team.
Yeah, they're football. Do we have any reviews to read?
Yeah, we do have a review. So we always say, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That was part of the typical preamble that we neglected to
Any
read.
of you that haven't done that, just go do that.
Yeah, because it's a lot of fun. It makes us feel better. It gets the show ranking a bit better, and we use it for content. Okay.
Don't go to our website, though, because it's fucked.
We're working on it. I feel like I've been saying that for the entire time we've had this pause. It's being worked on. I have the best people on it, I swear.
Okay.
You'll see. I'll show you all. This website
high on your list of priorities.
It's going to
I got it.
Knock your socks off. Okay. So this is 5 stars from Chris Cruz G. I don't know if that's his real last name, so I'll leave it out.
You just put it in.
Well, the first two.
Oh, okay.
That's like a double.
All right. I didn't realize there was more after the G.
I'm sorry. He says, I honestly love the show. I appreciate the more secular approach to recovery. Mike and Nat do a nice job of offsetting the other person's personality, like a good marriage. It's fun, and they give thoughtful and interesting insight on the topics they discuss. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Well, that's the last one we've gotten.
We'll send you a pair of dopey socks.
Yeah.
Dave will send you a pair of dopey socks.
Yeah, speaking of dopey, DopeyCon is coming up, and I'm definitely going to be there, guys. Tons of dopes from the Dopiverse and the Doposphere will be colliding with the Monksterverse. So if any Monksters are planning on going, I wish I could read off a date and place. But if you know, you go to Dopey Podcast and check that out, because I'll definitely be there. It'd be really cool to meet some people. I met Jen Lally last year. That was really cool. A couple other people. So it was fun.
Nat will definitely be going to DopeyCon.
Yeah.
Mike probably not.
Mike's not going. It's at the Church of the Holy Apostle or something like that. But it's a lot of fun. Good times.
I'd be afraid I'd burst into flames.
Great oldies.
So as long as we're doing that kind of thing, we put together a Shatterproof team.
Yes.
For the Shatterproof walk in New York City on the 28th of October.
Oh, cool.
Liz may be coming down.
Is that in New York?
Yeah, it's in New York. I hope you.
I'm doing
planning
that, right?
on attending.
I'm going, right?
You should.
You should ask my wife.
You should. Maybe my wife will go too.
Yeah,
maybe all the wives will go.
Bring the wives.
All of them.
The first wives club.
Yeah, and then maybe we could go to Katz's after for pastrami or something.
If you guys haven't had a Katz's pastrami sandwich.
Yeah. Anyway, if you go to Shatterproof, search for the Recovery in the Middle Ages team. If you show up, I'll give you a free T-shirt. Just
no guarantee it will fit.
Let me know. yeah, right. That's. I don't know. I have a lot of T-shirts.
Let's just
nobody's buying them, so I'm giving them away.
I've got a T-shirt cannon I was thinking about bringing
to the walk.
Yeah, and just fire it at people on the side of the road.
That's New York City these days. Wouldn't be out of place.
Just forcibly make fans.
So anyway, come down. It's for a good cause.
Yeah.
I don't have Shatterproof's copy in front of me today, but
and I'm going to be wearing rollerblades.
Are you? Are you going to wear booty shorts and do the whole 90s?
I'm going to grease up.
Yeah, get the mesh shirt.
Get a visor and.
Rollerblades were big for a while, weren't they? In the 90s?
It was very cool.
I used to go running in Central Park when I lived in the city, I remember, and all these guys. I mean, I don't want to comment on their sexuality because I don't know what it was.
That would be inappropriate.
But based on, New York fashion sense, it certainly seems as though,
they fit into a scene, you might say.
Yeah. But boy, it looked like a great workout because they had buns of steel, all of them. It was amazing.
Yes.
I used to envy their buns of steel. I'm just running my flabby ass around Central Park, and I'm watching these guys. I'm like, do you get that ripped by rollerblading? And I'm like, no, it's probably crystal meth and hours in Dave Barton's gym.
Yeah, it's meth and steroids. That does the trick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
I should probably read the advertiser thing, right? Because we have an advertiser.
We have a very exciting message from SoberLink.
If you guys have something better to do for the next 30 seconds.
Here we go. Don't do it. Listen to this ad.
When you know better, you do. I'm glad nobody from SoberLink listens to this fucking podcast.
Here we go. Ready? Serious faces. Ready?
When you know better, you do better. But sometimes doing better depends on what tools are available to you. Mm-hmm. As two men in recovery from alcohol use disorder, we know how difficult it can be to seek help for a disease that's so stigmatized. If you're struggling to get sober, SoberLink can help. SoberLink's remote alcohol monitoring system was specifically designed to help you in your recovery. It's not just some breathalyzer you buy at the store.
Damn right.
Small enough to fit in your pocket and discreet enough to use in public or in front of your kids. I know. Something about that line. It gets me every time, and I'm always looking for the joke in there, and I can't find it.
Sorry.
SoberLink devices combine facial recognition, tamper detection, and real-time results, so friends and family know instantly that you're sober and working towards your recovery goals. Mike's Reed. This system would have been a game changer for Nat and I during early recovery.
We got to send the money back. This isn't right.
When every bit of accountability helps, stay on message.
Yes.
Nat's Reed, it says right there.
Yeah. I really can't think of a better tool for tracking and sharing progress and rebuilding trust in relationships.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
So make 2023, or at least what's left of it, a memorable one. It's never too late to start. I just made that up. It's www.soberlink.com/middle-ages to sign up and receive $50 off your device. And that's www.soberlink.com//middle-ages. If you guys just all go there and fill out the form, right? You don't have to you don't have to buy one. But if you go and fill out the form, like the SoberLink bean counters really like that.
I think that's considered fraud, Mike. I don't know if that's advisable.
But then they'll keep paying us.
Well,
not that it's a lot of money, but every little bit helps.
Well, look, here's where I have to save the ad every single week.
Okay.
Guys, all kidding aside, SoberLink.
Yes, do it.
Do it. No, I always remind everyone, the great G Money Smooth, who just celebrated his soberversary, big part of the show.
Yeah,
he's
babe.
doing great. But part of the way he got back on track and how he made his family feel more comfortable with his recovery was SoberLink. That's the only reason we do this ad. It's because we heard about it through him. It worked for him.
Nothing to do with the money.
It will work for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Give SoberLink a try.
If in early recovery I'd been aware of such a thing, I might have used it for accountability purposes, because it really is. That's what it's for,
Yeah.
And it's a good idea. And
you can look forward to using it in front of your kids.
my personal belief is you should have one of these things on every car. And every teenager who gets a driver's permit should have to have a SoberLink device.
You should have to have. I'm dead ass serious right now.
Yep.
Every kid who gets a license from like 18 to 25, at least, you should be made to freaking blow in a SoberLink device.
Seriously.
Can you imagine how many lives would be saved?
Yeah.
Just saying. Brilliant idea.
I think it's a great idea, and there actually has been some discussion about putting these on new cars, but the alcohol industry and lobby is, of course, would never allow such
They were like,
thing.
what about marijuana?
Yeah,
you can't test for that with a blower.
Yeah, but then you just drive 20 miles an hour if you move at all.
I'm just grunting now.
That's participating in the dialogue. So a couple interesting things happened to me recently.
Oh no! Does that mean you're going to tell me?
I'm going to tell the listeners.
Okay,
they may be interested,
what
even
happened?
if you're not.
What is?
Well, the
what
first thing I wanted to mention was, we dropped my son Dimitri off at his new college.
Oh wow, back to school.
Oneonta State.
No kidding. My partner went to Stone. They call it Stonyonta. Did you know that?
I did know that. And it caused my wife and I some consternation, when we brought him up there, that he was just going to spend, his whole time just drinking and getting fucked up.
Instead, he's going to be smoking out of a bong, watching Quantum Leap reruns in his dorm room.
Sounds like my
That's what I
college
did.
experience.
That's exactly where I was.
Well, he had a really bad experience at University of Scranton last year, and bad just because we put him in a single because he had the ADHD and stuff, and that ended up being totally the wrong move because wasn't able to meet anybody, and he never went out, and we can kind of see where he is on Find My iPhone, and last year it was like, where's Dimitri? He's in his room. Where's Dimitri? He's in his room. And so we drop him off this time, and this time he's in a quad, so it's like two people on one side, two people on the other side, and then there's a room in the middle.
Yeah, those suites, those are great.
So he meets his roommate. Seems like a nice kid. They shake hands. The guys across the hall. We leave, and we're like, "Where's Dimitri?" He's not in his room. He's out, and he was out every single night.
Yes.
And he's made a whole bunch of friends.
That's awesome.
And he's having the greatest time.
That's so cool.
Not doing any schoolwork, but I think we can still salvage the semester. It's early enough. But and there's a reason this is germane to the program.
Here's Jermaine again.
Fuck. I overuse vocabulary.
You love this guy.
Anyway, he decides that he's going to rush a frat.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Which I don't know what that means since I was never in a frat, but I assume that means you go to all these parties. Actually, this is what it means because he told me.
It's a lot of drinking.
You go to all the parties, there's a lot of drinking, and then you apply to the frat, and then they give you a bid, which means you are then a pledge, which means you have to do all the weird things to become a frat boy.
A brother.
I guess.
You become a brother.
So, what is your impression of what happens when you bid to a fraternity?
Well, I've kind of cheated here because I pledged a fraternity.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Really?
Did not finish the pledge because of a number of reasons, but I went through the bid process. I went through pledging for it was almost a month, and it just wasn't ending. And when spring break came along, and I was sure we were going to get in right before spring break, and I had come to loathe the brothers in this for by the time I got to spring break, 3 weeks into being tortured basically and not sleeping, and I was like, if we're not getting in before spring break, fuck this and fuck these guys, because I don't even want to be friends with them anymore.
Right.
And we didn't. They're like, see you when you get back from spring break, wear your pin everywhere you go. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. And that's when I just took a walk. I'm like, I am not doing that. It's a lot of sleep. For me, it was a lot of sleep deprivation, memorizing these phony traditions that they made up for their fraternity. It was a bunch of bullshit. You're just cleaning up the frat house. We weren't allowed. Interestingly, the pledges were barred from drinking. 100% not allowed to drink.
That is what I wanted to say.
Yes.
That his pledge is that he cannot drink for 6 weeks.
It's a torture, though.
And I'm like, what kind of fraternity makes you not drink for 6 weeks?
They're torturing you when you're pledging. That's the whole point. It's like they're putting you in situations that look like a lot of fun, but you're the person cleaning up. You're like the bitch. Every time a brother would walk in the room, whether you knew them or not, you were supposed to stand up and say, hello, Mr. Mike R. Sir. Hello. And you'd have to recite it in order of when they graduated. There's all this bullshit they make you memorize.
I mean, it wouldn't be for me, but I have to say I was shocked to hear that this no drinking was a part of it, because my impression of fraternities is that, they make you drink like a gallon of vodka and then eat live fish and shit like that.
Well, once you get in,
yeah,
that night,
because he's not supposed to talk about what they make him do, right?
It's a big secret,
right? So, but according to Aaron, who talked to him yesterday, there's a lot of lifting involved, weights.
Yeah,
they have to do feats of strength or some shit, and they have to wear suit and tie everywhere and stuff. So he didn't have his suit. We were dropping him off at school. We're like, do you want your suit? He's like, oh, a suit. And now, of course, he needs a suit. He doesn't have one. He goes to the Salvation Army yesterday and spent $11 on a suit.
Nice.
Bought a suit and a pair of shoes.
That's a nice.
But okay, so here I am thinking that so he also joins the frat that has the reputation as having the highest GPA on campus.
Okay.
Which is going to be a problem for him.
Well, maybe he'll keep him up.
That's what I said.
That could be great.
Yeah. Hopefully that lights a fire under his ass for him to start doing more work.
I think fraternities are not what they used to be after so many kids died, and so many fraternities were discontinued because of horrific crimes and drug dealing and rapes and things. So I think to these days the colleges, I'm hoping, the fraternity I pledged is not part of that college anymore, because a few years after, some horrible shit went down and it was really bad, and they're like, that's it. So I think it's probably less horrific compared to the 80s, but
I mean, I would hope so, but
it could be really great, and it could be,
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't a part of my college experience that, the first couple of years I went to Fordham, there was one fraternity that Fordham allowed to exist on. Why are you looking at me with that look while you have your hand out of your pants?
I'm fixing my pants. I'm dropping.
Okay, you've distracted me now.
I'm sorry. I was gazing into my eyes.
But so I went to a couple of those frat parties, but the fucking rapey energy was just so over the top. I was like, this is making me uncomfortable. Yeah. And it wasn't like I was worried, but I was worried for the girls that were there. Yeah. I was like,
it's a nest for predators.
Yeah, I guess so. But
kids these days aren't like.
I look at a picture yesterday he sent of himself and all of the pledges, and they're all wearing suits, and they're standing there, and I'm like, what a nice bunch of young men. And I'm like, this isn't the kid I dropped off at school, So I'm hoping against hope, that this. But he said when we spoke to him last week before the pledging stuff started, he was like, man, he's like, Oneonta is bad for my health, because he'd been out every night till like 1 o'clock in the morning partying during the Rush stuff. So
Rush, you get to party once you start after midnight. That's it.
Jesus Christ,
that's it.
It's rough, man.
Yep.
I don't know.
Oh, it's cool. I'm glad it sounds like he's in at least a spot where he can, meet some people, have a little fun, and maybe that'll all work in his favor.
I know, but I worry about the other extreme too. Like, once the pledging is over and they start in with the real drinking, is he going to be able to balance it? I certainly never could. There are kids out there that somehow manage to smoke a lot of weed, drink a lot of booze,
and become
still
president.
Get grades.
And look at George W. Bush.
Well, yeah.
He became president.
He did.
He was in Skull and Bones, I think.
I mean, he just quit drinking at age 40.
Good idea.
Yeah. Or earlier, even, is a good idea. But
dead silence.
Dead silence. I was just thinking about the Monkster Mash in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Which is also happening. I'm going. I booked my ticket.
You're going to the West Coast.
I'm going
Monkster
to the West
Mash.
Coast Monkster.
That's so cool.
Mash.
What is the Monkster Mash?
It's basically just a couple days wandering around San Francisco with Grant, me. I think Charlie's going too.
Oh, cool.
Actually, yeah. And I think that's it for now. But if anybody else wants to get on that train, I mean, it's not too late. It's really nothing formally organized. Just rather get together and do some hiking and see the sights in San Francisco. I'm also taking Jack to a couple of colleges while I'm there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I'm like, Jack, you want to see Stanford? You're not going to get in, but I'll show it to you so you can.
Might as well take a look.
Yeah, might as well look.
Kick the tires.
So that's the over Veterans Day weekend. So anybody that's looking for something to do, so you're kind of on your own with transport and hotels, but we're just going to meet up on Saturday, do a thing, and then meet up on Sunday and do another thing. And
yeah.
Well,
that sounds great. Things are starting to. I've got so much on my personal life update. I'm almost thinking that I should table it till next week because we're running a little late, and we've got a lot to get to with this. With this documentary.
I just have one other thing I have to say.
Yes, please.
So this past weekend, I'm looking at, the Landmark Theater in Port Washington.
Yeah.
By the way, your buddy Martin Sexton's playing there in a couple weeks or something.
Yep.
So I see an ad for the Zen Tricksters, and the Zen Tricksters are a Grateful Dead cover band that goes back to the late 1980s when there were no Grateful Dead cover bands. They used to play at a place called the Right Track Inn in Freeport every Saturday night for $5.
Wow.
And then they played at Teddy's over here, which is now Wild Honey, but used to be Teddy's.
Right.
On Sunday nights, the Jeff Mattson band. Anyway, Jeff Mattson, who was a founding member of the Zen Tricksters, they used to be called the Volunteers. Anyway, he is now the lead guitar player in the Dark Star Orchestra, which is a rather well-known Dead cover band that tours around the country recreating Grateful Dead shows song for song.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they sell out places like the Capitol Theater in Port Chester and places like that. So when I saw the Zen Tricksters there, I got bitten by the nostalgia bug because I used to go to those shows all the time when I was a kid. But I was also on a lot of drugs and drunk most of the time when I'd go to those shows. So I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. And then I started thinking, have I ever actually been since I got sober to a Grateful Dead related show? And I
haven't you?
I don't think I have.
I feel like you went to Dead and Company at some point.
Not sober.
Maybe
I had plans to go, and I just kind of blew it off. And the pandemic was in there.
Right. Wow.
So I buy tickets and Erin agrees to go. She wasn't paying attention when I asked her. Because then on the day of the show, she's like, I agreed to do what?
Yeah, it's usually when you call me and go, can you...
Almost happened. So I buy the tickets. I think I'm getting 2 seats, and then I show up, and it's a general admission show. They took all the seats out of the front, and it's just a big dance floor. And I didn't know this, and apparently neither did some of the other septuagenarians who thought they bought seats, because there was a guy standing next to me with a walker who was like, "Where's my seat?" I'm like, "You don't have one, bro. None of us have seats."
So it was like the Yes Show. We had everybody with walkers and canes.
I mean, this was this crowd tacked slightly younger. Like when I say that, I mean like mostly people in their 50s and early 60s. There was a smattering of 40s, and one girl who I have to guess was in her 30s.
Wow.
At least based on the amount of drugs that she seemed to have taken.
Do you think she got lost? Or
No, I mean, there was a few younger folks. It was a weird crowd, though, because it was like Port Washington,
Yeah.
Saturday night. A band that only plays one-offs now. They don't really exist anymore. They just, whenever they
It's like a big reunion.
all are home together, I guess they go out and do a show. And they have a curfew there because so shows have to end at like 10:30 or
the
something
neighborhood.
like that.
It's very swanky.
So so I go on the rail, which is the front, because
So you're right up front.
right up front. I'm standing there, and the band is right in front of me. Nobody else in front of me. So they start playing. It's great. I'm dancing around, and then having a great time, by the way. And
Not high.
this is a new thing for me, having a good time going out and not being drunk, because I was going out a lot last couple of years, really begrudgingly. I wasn't into
Yep.
it. I was just like,
I
I don't want to do this. I don't
I
want
could sense it.
Yeah.
You were like angry to.
Not that I wanted to drink. I just didn't think I was going to have a good time. And then
Right.
it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I didn't have a good time.
You got what you wanted.
But, ever since I went to my sister-in-law's wedding, and had a good time, I'm like, well, maybe I can have a good time going out. So that's why I kind of bought the ticket, because I wanted to see,
Test it out.
to take the ride. And what better than a dead show to sort of test the ride. So we went out to dinner in Port Washington before. Nikkei of Peru, remember they used to have a thing?
They have
got
a
one
place.
and it's even better. Anyway, so I go and going through a few songs, and the place really got crowded, and there's like old people smoking pot in there, and like getting the security is like wagging fingers, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat, and then I'm standing there, and I feel this like tap on my shoulder, and this woman in her 30s just kind of muscles through me and Aaron and like stands right in front of me, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm looking at her, I'm like, it's like total tour rat. Like she's got the literally bells on her ankles and feathers in her hair, like
This
the
is my
tattoos, and like she reeks of patchouli and body odor
Nice.
and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's like, you don't see that on Long Island, outside of like the shows at the Coliseum and stuff. But anyway, she gets in, she excuse me a second, and like holds up her phone and starts live Instagramming, and she's like screaming at the bass player, and he looks at her and he like recognizes her, and he gives her this smile that makes me think that she's been at these shows before.
It's not her first.
Not her first rodeo, and she kind of knows this guy. And then he was like trying to kind of ignore her after that, but she was just getting all like nutty, and she was very twitchy, and she was like doing the fucking wash machine Grateful Dead dance, spinning around, and
horrible.
And me and Aaron are like looking at each other and fucking cracking up, because she's so clearly like wasted on some kind of hallucinogen. I couldn't figure out what kind it was, whether it was acid or ecstasy or something.
Probably mushrooms.
Maybe it was mushrooms, I don't know. But anyway, so she's like doing her whirly gig thing, and at one point, like she opens up this tiny amount of space, and Aaron just pulls me in, and I got kind of elbow this chick to the side, and so she kind of bounces over, and then kind of moves down along the front row, like irritating people as she's going, and I don't know. I hate to mac on my deadhead sisters, but it was a bit much for the venue and for the scene.
She's leaning.
Maybe
into
I'm
her
just
brand.
getting old, or like I'm trying to think, like if this had been like 5 or 6 years ago and I had like 7 or 8 pints, like would it have bothered me at all?
Probably not. You'd
Probably
be like,
not.
Go, sister.
Yeah, shake it.
Man, live it.
And then at the set break, last thing I'm going to say, during the set break, as soon as the band goes upstage, this very sweaty man came up to me and, without asking my permission, gave me a hug, and then explained that he was very drunk, and explained that he was recently in Santa Monica and he saw a guy on the beach with a sign that said "Hugs for free," and he thought that was really cool. So now he just goes around hugging people.
Oh,
yeah,
isn't
I was
that
like,
special?
Aaron was like, if that guy put his arm around me, I would have kneed him in the balls.
You need a tetanus shot. Oh man.
So anyway, but I didn't feel at all tempted to drink or use drugs, which at a fucking Dead show, I always get that.
See, that's great. That's like even after 4 years of sobriety, it's still you're still learning about yourself. I'm still learning about myself, what I can tolerate. And I'm sort of watching it like from a third person. Sometimes I'm like looking at myself, going, I'm in this situation, and I haven't once considered sneaking a drink or wished I had a drink,
right.
or when I have some stressful situations like this morning, just for like work and stuff, it's like I don't want to run away. It's like my first instinct is to go towards it and try and fix it or make it work. And that's amazing. Like it happened over time, and now you can enjoy things like going out.
But the thing that really blows my mind is like even, I used to think that a year was a lot of fucking sober time.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
would think
people
about
have
a
year.
Like, wow.
And then you realize like the more you keep going, the better it gets. Like the more you start to become comfortable in your own skin, and the better you feel about yourself in different situations.
Yeah, you start to trust yourself a little bit.
It's almost like the first 5 years is like phase one, and then like who knows what's coming for that. I'm excited to see what's going to happen the next,
well, that's
however
why
many years.
Maybe they say you get your marbles back in AA after you get your 5 years, and people will hand people a bag of marbles.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Okay.
So maybe there's some wisdom in the old bromides.
Yes. Bromides.
Yes.
So you like the word bromide.
I do.
You do.
It's germane to our conversation.
That's a good one. So speaking of short amounts of sober time,
yes,
interesting documentary we watched.
Now this is a really, moving on. And guys, I will catch you up. Next week I have a lot of crazy stuff happen.
Okay.
Personally, the kids are doing a lot of crazy, like interesting things.
It'll be the episode of Nat.
Yeah, and I don't want to take up any more of our audience's good time with all of my nonsense.
Did I monopolize the conversation?
No, that was good. Usually I would try and one-up you and do another 30 minutes on myself, but I do have to get us moving because I got work and you have work. And
I have work.
And,
my shirt smells like BO. It's weird.
Yeah, I've been smelling something on myself lately. Like I'm like, is that me? Do you ever do that? You're like something like right now. You're like, I'm smelling around. I'm like, did the cat piss on the couch?
Right.
And I'm smelling the couch. I'm like, maybe I smell like cat. But like, I don't know.
I just found this shirt like in my drawer. Maybe I didn't wash it.
I don't smell it.
Sorry. Okay, good.
And the Monsters don't smell. Do you guys smell anything?
I don't think they can smell anything.
But this documentary, I'm glad that you brought this one up for this time, because this was one of those documentaries that came out during a particularly interesting time in my recovery. I was clean and I was just consuming and devouring everything I possibly could on documentaries, books, shows, movies. I just got into this like overly consuming like recovery literature, movie. Any case, so this was one of them. And I really loved this. I remember when I first watched it, I really identified with what these guys were going through. It reminded me of some of the situations I found myself in early recovery. And going and watching it again for this show, it was weird. It was like a transport. Like I could almost transport myself back into that mindset.
Yeah.
And I was just like jaw dropped about like, wow, like I can't believe I was that, dare I say, powerless. In the face of all of the obvious bad choices that no logical or rational person would make, but in that headspace, I would make the wrong choice every single time.
Well, like a lot of these guys.
Yeah,
do.
and it just blew my mind. So
maybe we should tell the folks that
what?
Recovery Boys, it's a Netflix documentary.
Yes.
It's directed by a woman named Elaine McMillion Sheldon, who also directed Heroine.
Yeah,
seen that one?
That's another good one.
I have not watched that one, but she sort of specializes in doing documentaries on Appalachia and recovery issues, and she's got one out on coal miners that's apparently pretty good that I'd like to watch because I kind of like her style. It was released in 2018, and it follows the story of four guys as they try to rebuild their lives and recover from opioid addiction at a farm-based rehab facility in West Virginia called Jacob's Ladder.
Yes.
And Jacob's Ladder was started by a doctor, Dr. Kevin Blankenship, he was a emergency medicine physician. And, in that capacity, he watched firsthand what happened with the opioid crisis in West Virginia, people coming into the ER, overdosing and everything like that. And then his own son became an opioid addict, and he was recovered 2 years at the time in the movie. But that was an additional impetus for him to create this Jacob's Ladder. He was envisioning a rehab program that was not the traditional recovery center. He wanted a place that treated individuals holistically, that focused not on the physical aspect of addiction, but also on psychological healing and personal growth. And very important to that was the farm setting, because the rehab is located on a farm. And
equine therapy.
Not exactly.
Is that what that is, sort of?
There are horses, but there's also pigs, chickens, all kinds of things. And the guys work on the farm as part of their recovery.
Right. Pork therapy.
It's work, community, and nature. That's kind of a different approach than a lot of places. And
I always love the idea of those things. When I see a documentary about it, or it's in a book or something, and I go, I really romanticize
horse therapy,
all of that
yoga.
Stuff. You're in your worst state in addiction, and you just get transported to some farm in Montana, and the guys are all decked out in their cold gear, and they're waking up at 5 a.m. and pushing big bales of hay and milking it. It just looks, I'm like, man.
Well, that's a great scene where one of the guys, guys in recovery, his name is Rush, and he's basically picking up huge bales of hay that come spitting off this tractor, and he goes,
he's my
Dr.
favorite.
Blankenship asked me if I wanted to go for a hayride, and this isn't quite what I had in mind.
Yeah, that guy's he's my favorite.
Rush, the big guy.
I like that guy.
Yeah. But it's really interesting because there's a lot of 12-step, right? There's a lot of NA meetings and there's a lot of AA meetings, and but as a corollary to that, there's the work on the farm, and the thing that I thought was really nice is, and I don't know if this was they were just showing it this way for the documentary, but it seemed to have a lot of what Evan, what was Evan's last name?
I don't remember.
From America.
Evan Haynes.
Evan Haynes said, at Oro Recovery, they treat everybody that comes in with unconditional positive regard. None of this yelling at you or trying to break you down or any of that telling you you're an asshole. Right. There was a lot of love in this place, and a lot of hugging, and a lot of, instead of telling somebody you were a fuck up, you fucked up, it's just kind of well, you made some bad choices. Here's the things that came from those choices, and let's figure out how to move on and do something positive out of it. There's a lot of positivity there.
And it sounds great, but it didn't appear to really work for most of the guys. Well, here's the thing. I love the idea of that, and it's what I always wanted when I was at these screamy recovery things with douchey counselors that are, treat you like a piece of shit. And I was like, man, I wish I could be in one of those lovey-dovey, but would that have worked for me? I mean, maybe I needed some abuse.
Nobody needs abuse.
Not abuse, but abuse. A little bit of hey, you're making a bad decision, instead of, well, it's your decision, and no matter what, it's a good decision because it's yours.
Don't you know when you're making a bad decision?
Well, so then what's the point?
Well, I mean, I don't question that part of the methodology.
Yeah.
I question the 12-step part. I think that's less effective.
But if they weren't doing, and I was just thinking about it, because the truth is, it's all 12-step, and we're not we've all talked about the recovery rates in 12-step that's reported. It's 5 out of 100 type of thing. But if they didn't have all of those free resources, like an NA meeting to go to, an AA meeting, a gambler's and whatever, what would they be doing?
Smart recovery meetings, Dharma recovery meetings. Those are also free.
But there's nothing near them to do that.
Well, and I think you sort of touched on what the real issue is these are all folks from the local community who are attending a rehab in their local community.
They don't have options. He would have had to invent it.
So when they are discharged back into the community, it's not like they're going right back to where they were. Right back to the center of the opioid epidemic. And these are all heroin addicts.
Yeah.
And there's one character in the movie, his name was Jeff. Right? He's
it's just heartbreaker.
Seems like a nice enough guy, but he's triple convicted felon.
By the time he got there, he already had the 3 felonies, I think, right?
Yeah, because he was on probation, right? So, and he,
24 or something. Yeah. He was a young guy.
And
with
the
3
story
felonies.
arc for him is he was trying to get his daughters back before they were taken away permanently. Because I guess his wife also had drug problems. They alluded to that, in the when they had the scene where he was going to court, but. So he violates his he leaves the program after he He does his, whatever it is. How many months was he there? Maybe 6 months. He graduates the program. They put him in a Jacobs House sober living, which Dr. Blankenship created right next to Jacob's Ladder rehab. He's got a job driving, going and picking up new patients, bringing them to the rehab and so forth. He slowly kind of loses his center. He starts using again, violates his probation, winds up doing a 30-day stretch. The judge decides not to send him to prison for like years, gives him 30 days. He comes out of the 30 days and he's begging his parole officer, don't make me stay in Morgantown because this is where, I'm just going to end up doing drugs again. And the probation officer's like, no, you have to stay here. You can't go anywhere else,
Yeah.
And he's like, go get a bed at this shelter tonight, and Jeff's like, well, I could go 2 towns over and have a place to sleep. The guy's like, no, you can't leave Morgantown, So it's like,
what is he supposed to do?
Is it the rehab? Is it the kindness at the rehab that's setting these guys up for failure? Or is it like the other aspects of this system that, isn't nimble enough to differentiate different people's needs,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. It's great to have this loving, understanding rehab situation, but when they get into the real world with this stuff, there is no extension of that system. That's easy to find anyway. And especially, of course he's going to go back. The kid's 24 years old. He's a 3-time felon. He is only clean maybe 30 days if he was using right before. He's right back out there. Of course he's going to, unless he's by some miracle, he has a spiritual awakening, right? It's like, I'm not going to do this anymore, but people don't grow up overnight.
Well, but Jeff had a especially rough time, I think, because he had all those criminal issues in his past, and they didn't really say what they were for and whether or not, the punishment was warranted or whether
was in shit shape. I mean, that's an unusual scenario, though. I mean, of all the people I met in the different rehabs and things.
Unknown caller.
That's probably Jeff.
Hey, how come I can't make it stop?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Unknown caller. So, what I was saying, and cut back here and go. So, I didn't run into a lot of the guys I met in rehabs were in trouble. They were fighting. They would call, I caught illegal. They'd say, I caught a gun charge.
Caught a case.
Yeah. They say, I caught a case, as though you didn't do it. It happened to you, But he was in a particularly rough situation. But you would think, and I think that's the thinking on the other side is, look, we put all of the screws to him. We tell him, listen, dummy, you drink again, even alcohol, you will lose your kids permanently. That is a major thing to happen to somebody. How is a 24-year-old kid struggling with opioid addiction not how can he possibly succeed in that scenario?
Well, you could ask the same question of any alcoholic or any addict who is faced with the prospect of losing their family, with losing everything, with losing their job, and people choose the booze and the drugs every time. It's not like they want to; they just feel compelled to.
I did it too in a lot of different scenarios. I was facing jail time. I was facing losing everything. Going back to there were some, and that's what this documentary did for me, is it kind of took me back into that mindset where I was that same guy. I was the one with the probation officer violating me. I'd go back every week. I'd test positive again. What is wrong with you? You've got a nice family. What do you need? What has to happen to you?
Yeah, but judging somebody by that standard is so fucked because if someone is picking drugs or alcohol over their family, it's not really a choice because no one would choose that.
No. Yeah, and
no one would willingly choose that.
And people would ask me all the time, how could you choose drugs over your children? And when I finally got wise, I said, if you're asking that question, you really don't understand what's happening here. Because of course I would never do that. And that's not what this is. It sounds like a choice. It might even appear to be a choice, but let me tell you from personal experience, there is no choice involved. It's like a survival instinct. You're compelled by your chemistry.
Yes. You may choose the first few times, but after that, the choice is sort of made for you. And I'm not saying you have no agency in the situation, but what would have helped a guy like Jeff is naltrexone or any of these other drugs, and they made an allusion to some of these guys being on that.
Yeah,
like for example, that kid Adam, who he was even younger. He was addicted to heroin, and he got sober through the program at Jacob's Ladder, then went out, then ended up living with his mother.
Yeah,
and his mother was like. They asked her how it was going, and she's like, "Well, it's okay for now. He's on the naltrexone, and as long as I don't have to buy my TV back for a fourth time,
I thought that was so
he
funny.
can stay here as long as I don't have to buy my TV again." But anyway, so he seemed like that. He got a job, and then he was able to function. His mother went off and bought him a pair of boots, and he's out, doing his thing.
Yeah.
So it always sort of boggles my mind that AA and NA are out there saying how that this is a disease, but they just don't want to treat it with medication.
Yeah, and she said something. I actually wrote this on a note somewhere that I've now lost, but there was a really interesting thing that she said. And when she was talking about, how disappointed she was and how, he was back home with her and he looked completely out of it. And she said something like, well, he's on Suboxone now, and
Suboxone,
I guess she goes, I guess that's the lesser of two evils.
Right.
And I was like,
I remember
what
that.
in the fuck is this idiot talking about? This is a life-saving drug that it's not just a lesser of two evils. It's what's going to fucking save his life. And look at him. She's like, oh, and he doesn't have circles under his eyes. He's working. I'm like, what part of that sounds bad to you? Why is taking Suboxone on the same level as or close to using again? I mean, I'll tell you what, it saved my life. It's probably could have saved that guy's life. But you've got people like the mother who's been, brainwashed or for some reason is thinking of this life-saving medication for a killer disease as a lesser of two evils. Like, what does she want? Him to be Superman and to magically become sober and abstinent? It's absurd that there's this sentiment out there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that this is the way Jacob's Ladder does their recovery, but maybe the fact that Adam kept relapsing after finishing that program was they didn't have an avenue for medical intervention.
No, you have to stabilize someone who is going through withdrawals so they can actually listen to and engage in recovery. There's no way, if any of you out there have ever, withdrawn from opioids, it's a nightmare. There's no way you can focus on recovery or even think about the mistakes you've made because let me tell you, it's almost impossible. So to put someone on Suboxone sounds brilliant to me. Yeah. And it felt brilliant because now you're stable. You're not worrying about which dangerous felon you need to call first to get your next fix. Mm-hmm. It's regulated. Hopefully you're with a doctor and it's monitored. And
you can go to work. You can be a productive member of the society. And perhaps more importantly, it brings you to the place where you can start doing the work on yourself and untangle
I just don't
the other stuff.
Understand why it's treated like this is not recovery and this is some kind of failure. Like it's this macho man bullshit that they do with abstinence-based recovery sometimes that just drives me nuts and it's killing people.
Well, you remember Michael Keaton, the doctor he played in Dope Sick. He got on Suboxone when he became addicted, and the AMA wouldn't give him his license back because he was on an opioid to treat his, an opioid agonist to treat his opioid addiction.
It's just total idiocy.
And it's just it's total idiocy. So you contrast Jeff and his story, 3-time felon and so on, with the guy Ryan, who about the same age, right? Ryan was the kid who played the guitar. He was like it's the guy with the Grateful Dead shirt.
He came in off the street.
Yeah,
right. They're like,
exactly.
oh, it's the first guy who's probably used an hour ago. He looked like a mess. Yeah, he was in rough shape.
Now he was a guy that I thought this guy has no chance. But he goes through the program. He goes to a sober living that was not even associated with Jacob's Ladder. And It was in Morgantown, and gets a job in a brewery of all places, like washing dishes. And I'm like, this guy ain't going to make it. But at the end of the documentary, he's got like 23 months sober, and he's working as a peer counselor for other addicts, and he's running meetings. So
you never know what's inside someone,
right? Like, how did he do it? And Jeff didn't.
Like, what is the difference?
Yeah.
What are the contributing factors?
I mean, who knows where these guys are now? That's the thing. Like, I don't want to give it away, but they all end up in different places, and
it's painful to watch. And
but at the end of the documentary, you said earlier that the program didn't really work, but I mean, Ryan was sober at the end, Rush was sober at the end, Adam was on Suboxone at the end. So really, it was
maybe it did, and maybe this is. I mean, the truth is, when we watch all of these documentaries and people's stories, the same answer keeps coming to me, which is there just is no one answer. And it's like treating people with compassion should just be number one. And treating this like a life-threatening illness, maybe is number two with it. And the rest, we have to have responsible, dedicated, and thoughtful clinicians and support teams that can do the work to save this lost generation. It's just, so I wonder how they're doing. It would be great to get one of these guys from Jacob's Ladder on the show.
Yeah, I did a little research, where are they now kind of stuff, and I couldn't really come up with much. I mean, I started following Jacob's Ladder on Facebook because they seem, I'm really pleased, all the criticism of their NA and AA focus aside, I think the farm setting is a great idea. Being out in nature is a great idea.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I wish I did something like that. I wonder if that would have worked for me.
I just think there's more and more studies that show that the mental health benefits of just being in nature,
Being away. One of the best things about the rehabs I went to was, and also the most frustrating was, they just take your phone. Like, you don't see your fucking phone till you get out. And it's frustrating, but it was a freedom. A lot of rehab, when rehab finally worked for me the last time, I was ready. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to accept everything they say. And they made you wear this VIP tag looking thing. It wasn't a VIP, just to say that you were a resident. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple of guys that didn't want to wear it. I'll never forget this because I was in such a different place than some of these guys, like mentally, because I'd been there a few times. And I remember them telling the counselor, I'm not wearing it. I feel like cattle being marked. And I was wearing it. I'm looking at it. And I go, dude, do you know what this gets you? He's like, what? I go, I can go to that, the cafeteria. I get 3 meals a day with this thing. I can use the gym. Mm-hmm. I get a bed, my own bathroom. I get free seminars. I'm like, this is like all-inclusive resort here. And it wasn't that nice,
right.
So it was funny. But the guy looked at me. He's like, I didn't think of it that way. And the counselor was like, look at you, like, oh my God, this guy's nuts.
You're reframing.
I had to.
Good.
I'm like, you know what? I'm exactly where I need to be, and I'm going to enjoy it. I've got 28 days to get some rest, learn something new about myself. And man, and the food was great. I mean, it was this big roly-poly named Bobby who was the chef. And he always, you could probably have pasta shells for breakfast if you wanted. Nice. It was just like carbs and pies and shit. But, it's all in how you frame it,
But you were ready, man. You were ready to get better.
This is fucking it. I did not want to sit through another seminar.
Yeah, but you were motivated. You had your family, you had kids and stuff. There's some of these guys that come in like these kids in Jacob's Ladder. They come in, they got nothing. They got no,
But it's like they do and they don't. And it's like, how do you explain to a kid, like, you have your whole life ahead of you? I was watching that guy Rush, just working. Every scene they showed him, he was like working hard.
Yeah.
He was doing construction and he had put so much into it. I'm like, that is a valuable member of any society Absolutely. He walks into. If he could just, stay away from the demons. Like, these guys have a lot to offer themselves, their families. And it's like, how do you explain that to someone who's in that? It's
because they don't have any self-esteem.
And there's no self-esteem. It's hard to get perspective when you're buried under it. And it's just an endless quandary.
Everybody's calling us today.
I know. Why can't I put my phone on leave me alone? Is that a setting?
Yeah, there is a setting. Leave me alone. You usually have it on because I text you. It says
DND.
Nat has put his phone in fuck off mode.
Can I tell you something about that? I never did that, and I was working constantly and talking to people, talking to you, to Dave, to like whoever's texting me at all times, my partner, the employee, whatever. So Noah like set up my phone so that it automatically DNDs. Do not disturbs at like 6:30. And I didn't notice it for a while. And I'm like, nobody's calling me. I'm like, that's great. And he just kind of like sneakily did it. So I would pay attention to what the hell was happening in my family.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so now I'm in more control of it.
Yeah. It gives me an option. Like Nat's phone is in fuck off mode. Would you like to deliver the message anyway?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely I would. Better fucking believe it. I can't just get this guy to return a message anymore. Fuck.
Yeah, definitely always push through. But back to the documentary. It's just like...
You guys should watch it.
I would say I would definitely watch it because even if you don't feel like you could relate to being in that scenario, I know not everyone who listens was like, a real bad drug addict, so to speak, but you can really... It's a really interesting look at where a lot of people are in their recoveries, and you can really get a sense of the desperation. And if you ever think to yourself, how could somebody choose their children, or choose drugs over their children, it's like it kind of gives you an insight into kind of where people's minds go. And we're grateful to be able to look from a distance now, but I mean it's a very real problem, and it's it's great that there are these, there's people like that doctor. And it reminded me of Dr. Drew. He's another emergency medicine doctor who then found himself as a recovery guru.
I don't know. I looked at those kids and I'm like, I remember being like that. I remember thinking that when I was really deep into the crack and stuff. Like I just could not, my worldview was so distorted. My thinking patterns were so distorted. And I look at these kids now with the benefit of all these years behind me, and I'm like, I recognize that thought pattern.
Yeah.
And it's the same thinking pattern that you have when you have alcohol use disorder. It's just on a smaller scale. You still have these blind spots and things that other people can see pretty clearly.
Yeah. It's obvious to everyone.
Obvious to everybody but you.
Yeah, and you have these conversations when someone calls you out on it in your life, like you're drinking too much. Well, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, and you think you're hiding it well enough that nobody notices. Anyway, so watch that. It's good.
Recovery Boys.
Yeah. So I have an idea.
Yeah.
Let's take a short break.
Yes.
And be right back after these words.
And we're back.
We are.
Hi.
Hi. So we did a very quick consensus and decided on what the story would be for
Recovery in the News. Yeah! All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Motherfuckers. Yeah.
Do you feel like a boomer musician that has been playing the same hit for 50 years?
Yes, but
I
I
have
love
to
it.
inject the same amount of excitement
every single
into
time.
every performance.
I put it in.
It's like play Hotel California again, bitch.
Yeah. All right. Philly, we got a new song for you. Boo. We'd like to
We're going to play some of our own, from our newer material.
Yes. No, you suck.
See, it's fucking handcuffs, man. We can never change that. You know that?
Yep.
Never.
I never would
change anything else about the show but that.
I was working on a rap metal version of it. I thought you'd all like.
Don't fuck with success. So, interesting article this week. Well, last week now in Neoscope. Apparently, new gene therapy. Ready for this title? New gene therapy dramatically reduces booze consumption in alcoholic monkeys.
Oh.
We are entering an era of gene therapy for neurological disorders. A team of scientists took a bunch of macaque. How do you say that?
I think it's my cock.
My cock monkeys.
Oh, there goes the CNN anchor job.
A team of scientists took a bunch of macaque monkey.
Is it like M apostrophe cock? Macaque.
It is?
I don't know. Let me see.
Macaw. Let's call them macaw monkeys.
It's a macaw, no macaque.
Monkeys made them into alcoholics and then successfully weaned them off the sauce after injecting their brains with a special gene. An experiment detailed in a new paper published in Nature Medicine that could potentially provide a compelling new treatment for addiction. Lesson, if you're a macaque monkey, don't get caught by researchers.
No.
Because they're going to turn you into an alcoholic and then inject shit into your brain.
There are not bananas in that white van, guys. Avoid. Run away.
Drinking went down to almost zero, Oregon Health and Science University professor and co-author Kathleen Grant told The Guardian. For months on end, these animals would choose to drink water or just avoid drinking alcohol altogether. The researchers set out with the premise that continued alcohol use causes changes to neurons and hampers the dopamine reward circuitry in the brain. This we have heard from such luminary scientists as Dr. Maya Zalovitz.
Yes.
Right?
Rewiring.
Yes. Anyway, what they did was they took a gene for protein known as a glial-derived neurotrophic factor, what they termed a growth factor that enhances dopaminogenic neuron function, whatever, and injected into a harmless virus to act as a Trojan horse.
Jeez.
They then plugged this gene into a part of the brain associated with rewards. The experiment involved 4 hard-drinking macaque monkeys, which, like some humans, are predisposed to alcoholism, and then they tracked their consumption. The results were astounding. The monkeys were producing an abundance of dopamine, and they cut their drinking by 90%.
Wow.
Not total abstinence, I might add.
Not total abstinence.
No.
So they were still drinking a little?
Basically, they went down to a reasonable 1 to 2 drinks a day from their hard living high of 8 to 10 drinks.
I think they call that monkey moderation.
Monkey moderation. The treatment is particularly intriguing because it's already been tested on humans, on adults with Parkinson's disease. Oh, okay. They didn't find alcoholics people with Parkinson's and be like, you want to try this? No, this is just, they tried treating Parkinson's with this. Okay, I see. So this means the road to clinical trials to treat alcoholism in human patients could be smooth. Interesting, right?
Yeah. Monkeys. They should have tried this on the Recovery Boys. Or I would like to see a show where they follow these monkeys in a house, kind of like the Real World with alcoholic monkeys undergoing experimental research. I think, and you can follow them to the barn dance, but instead of Recovery Boys, it's monkeys. I think this is gold.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I'm looking for it on Netflix.
How do they get the monkeys to drink so much? Do they just
drop
off a case of beer in the cage?
It's not hard to get a monkey addicted to alcohol, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, primates tend to be predisposed.
Yeah. Where do they get the alcohol? That's what I'm wondering.
I assume they buy it at 7-Eleven like everybody else does.
It's like
the monkeys?
Yeah.
I'm sure they provided alcohol by the researchers.
It's like giving alcoholics alcohol and being like...
But that's the point.
But these poor monkeys. What about their families?
Thanks. The monkeys choose the booze every time.
Well,
yeah. So what do you think about that in terms of potentially medically assisted treatment there? You think AA is going to come out against that one too?
I don't think we're going to be counting on AA to support, medical breakthroughs in recovery. But it's always there as a nice social support along with your experimental treatments. You could just go to your AA meeting with your head wrapped in a bandage, like the gown from the hospital.
Are you really sober if you've had glial proteins injected into your cerebellum?
But Dr. Bob and Bill W. never mentioned it.
Although, what did Bill say? Didn't he say, like, maybe someday there'll be a pill?
Until such time as there is a medication that can treat it, we're screwed, basically.
There is a pill.
There is.
AA people.
That's right.
There's pills. There's injections of glial proteins into your brain.
There's a Vivitrol
the program
shot.
Here. Yeah.
And, big things happening in the world of monkey addiction.
Yeah.
That was a Week in Weird and news all in one.
Speaking of Week in Weird.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys.
Where is it?
This is spooky season. I'm currently working on a web series with my son Noah to investigate the house I grew up in with paranormal devices where you can track ghosts and things.
Yeah, he mentioned this when I was driving to camp. That's fascinating.
He's already done an interview with my mother who has lived in the house since 1974 and her experiences. I'm going to get my experiences down on, and then we're going to go into the different areas where the hauntings were noticed by different people. My Aunt Ruthie had some experiences staying at the house. And I think it's going to be actually really cool. I'm a little scared to do a paranormal investigation in the house I grew up in, because once you open that door, you can never close it.
You should get a Ouija board and try and interview the person who lived there in 1874.
Well, we've got something close. It's called a spirit box, and we have some plans. So stay tuned for that.
Did somebody on the internet talk you into laying out a few $100 for something that measures weird radio waves or something?
If you mean somebody on the internet is Noah, my son, then yes. So look out for that. It's a spooky season, Week in Weird limited series. Now
really?
I just set myself up for that.
Giving yourself a whole shitload of work.
It'll be very cool. And if I don't get that on the show, Week in Weird is returning. So send your, what's your favorite Week in Weird topic? Because some people just got to have Bigfoot. Bigfoot is generally the favorite. But let us know if you'd like to hear more about UFOs or drunk monkeys.
We really should do a mini episode or a big chunk on the hearing, the congressional hearing that came out a little while ago by that guy who is...
That's legit, man.
Yeah,
this stuff is coming out, y'all.
Yeah, he was testifying that the U.S. had captured crafts, crashed UFOs, and then we have organic matter. We have dead aliens in a box somewhere.
We have recovered materials and things that they're working with. It's very interesting, but this is not recovery related. It's Week in Weird related. So stay tuned, folks.
All right.
And thanks for bearing with us. I know I had a great time today. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, currently being worked on.
Don't visit us there. Don't.
Podbean.
You'll get a fucking virus on your computer, so don't go there.
Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. So tweet us at what you twit. Support your favorite show. That's us. Drop a 5-star review on wherever reviews are accepted. And join a private Facebook group. We're having a great time on the private Facebook group. It's free. It appears that people are enjoying themselves, and I like to check in there. Join us on the Inner Sanctum, which is like our little private Discord chat group, and that's at patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. And
a Patreon commitment at any level will get you access to the Discord.
Yeah, and we're going to start when we get back into our flow. We're going to have the videos back up and the new shows. And I did want to say one more thing about the people, the fans and everybody who's recovering with us. I heard a lot of reviews lately, and I've seen posts about people who are really working on getting sober, and they're listening to the show. And I want you to know that we are here to support you, and, keep listening, and you can always reach out to us. Mike and I will always write you back. And it brought a tear to my eye, but seriously, guys, we love you. Keep working on it. It can only get better.
We want you to be well. And everyone needs to be well.
Yeah, we love you guys, and we just want you to be safe.
And if you're struggling, and if you fall off the fucking wagon, just get back on it.
Get back on.
Because the ones that succeed are the ones that keep going. Keep doing it.
And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you got something out of our show, and some of you have, please share it with a friend.
A couple of you, anyways.
A couple. 2 out of 1,000, maybe. Yeah. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
Progress, not perfection.
See you next time.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Be good.
Bye. Bye.
I hear the music pumping through it every night. And